Welcome back to another episode of Eggcellent Adventures. Reec right here, 2025. This is our first episode of season 3. We have a super special guest, Jessica of Game Fowl Conservation. When you hear game fowl, sometimes we hear the stigma of it, but she's doing some incredible stuff. Really enjoy her social media pages. She's over a decade in the game of fowl. See what I did there? Anybody can choose
that was great.
dad pun, but I want to get some background here at Eggcellent Adventures. We get to know other chicken people and find out their story, how they got into it, and then share some great information. So without further ado, Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I always am excited to share about game fowl.
Cool. So let's get the elephant out the room first, and then we're going to get a little history and stuff like that. So people sometimes they hear game fowl, they think about people fighting chickens and fighting cockfighting and all that type of stuff. When this is the furthest thing from what's going on when it comes down to your conservation in your organization.
That's right. Yeah. So there are keepers that are called cockers, and they tend to use game fowl for their traditional purpose, but they have a lot of value as a homestead bird, and I just wanted to bring that back into the forefront. And some people are just totally unfamiliar that they still are out there and existing, because they're not something that you order from a hatchery, a local hatchery.
Right. Never see their name
a little different.
Some of those breeds that you have,
Right.
They're really pretty birds, very strong looking birds, regal, if you will. They kind of sit up super straight, and even the females look like males in some cases.
That's right. Yeah, and they kind of act like it. They'll do their little dance even on me. The females will. They love to interact with people, which is what really drew me to them to begin with, because I had regular chickens, and my regular chickens were always running from me, and I was like, "Come here, let's just be friends."
Right.
And yeah, love me, come on. And then I encountered this kind of game fowl mutt bird that was from a rescue. He was actually from a ring in Chicago that had been busted up, and they had adopted out these birds. And this bird ran into my arms, and I was like forever changed. I was like, well, this is it. This is the breed right here.
That's a big difference from chickens running from you. Now they're running to you.
Running to you to be held. We take them for hikes. My husband will ice skate on our pond holding one of them, and they just seem totally at home.
That's incredible stuff right there. So you guys out in the Midwest, right?
We are. There's a blizzard currently, and it's supposed to be like -10 tonight.
I really feel for you. I'm not even going to tell you what's been happening out here where I am in Georgia. I'm not going to.
Oh my, yeah, no.
I'm going to make you
it's
jealous.
It's not like that. So I do stand out among game fowl people, because not a lot of us are up here, because they're not really from a country that ever had this type of weather. So they do just fine here, though, although they're not happy about it sometimes. Neither am I.
I'm not either, so I understand them. I might be a game fowl myself. So those birds are usually like from South America or a little bit south, right?
So I raise shamos, and they're oriental game fowl. So they originated in Thailand, and now they're actually a protected breed in Japan. And Japan doesn't export them or anything. They're kept there, and they keep them from going extinct, really, because their purpose has shifted drastically over the last several decades.
Got you. And you show your birds too. I see the purple ribbons. I see you showing them off on IG, and I mean this in the most humble way possible. You just post pictures. I'm calling and showing off because they're beautiful birds.
They are, and a lot of people have never seen them. So when I go to a show, an APA show, there will be 4-H kids, and that'll be like one of the last birds to check off their list that they've never seen this breed. Wow. So that's a highlight for me.
It's cool. Now let's talk about the origin story. The bird runs into your arms. You start loving this particular breed or type of bird. And as you get into the research, you learn these birds are illegal in 42 states. This is going on. This is what's happening. This is what they've been bred for. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Boy, I'm a very stubborn person. So I think
Oh,
I set out, I wanted to do something that was different than everybody else, and I wanted to see that I could do it. Being in Wisconsin, that's kind of working against me. These are not birds that you can just have in a commingling coop safely because they're aggressive towards other birds. And there were a lot of things stacked that was, it made it very clear why they had fallen out of favor and were on the critical list, on the Livestock Conservancy critical list. So
mm.
I I just wanted to go about keeping the hardest chicken I possibly could.
Oh, because why not? Why not
Why
make it
not?
a
That's
Rubik's
kind of a
cube?
theme in my life. Like, how can I make it harder on myself? And then I do it and I achieve.
I
I
love
try
that.
to.
So tell me, like keeping. So obviously, you said you can't keep them together. I've been to one game fowl place, and they had like 50 little hutches, right? And every
Oh yeah.
bird had their own hutches, and they had their own area that they can go and couldn't go anywhere else.
Yep. So it's obviously a lot easier in the Bantam version. It's also a lot easier in the South because people have these kind of open cages, or they put them on something called tie cords, which go around their leg, and it gives them this little range they can go and a little shelter to go inside. I don't
Mhm.
have that option, and they're very large birds, some of them 33 inches tall and 13, 14 pounds.
The
So
size of
they
my
have,
that's crazy.
yeah. I mean, they're big and they'll try and eat out of your pocket if they see something sticking out there. So yeah, we had a pre-existing structure and built some breeding pens in there. And
Mm.
then another kind of tool of the trade is the drop pen, which is a really nifty thing for any chicken keeper to have on hand. And they fold up completely flat and they take up about 4 foot by 4 foot square space. The top folds open, and you can just put them anywhere. So you can put
Okay.
your birds out on grass, move them around, get them nice little areas like that. So I utilize all of the traditional game fowl tools, just probably not for the same reasons they were designed for to begin with.
Using the powers for good and not evil.
Yes, using the powers for good. And, the Livestock Conservancy, they're really into birds having a purpose. And since this bird's original purpose really is non-existent in our country anymore, I do process our extra birds. That was like a huge step for me last year. It was something I'd never
I
done
bet
before.
you're doing it
And
like it's almost like pets, and then now you have to have a purpose for those pets.
yes, and they have really big personality, so it makes it really hard. I do not name birds until I've made it past that window. Nobody gets
Okay.
a name
That's the
because
rule.
it's
That's the
yeah,
chicken rule, the chicken people rule. You name it, you can't process it.
that's right. What are you supposed to do? You have to give it a proper burial, We're like, we're running out of space out here with for little stones. So there's a balance there, and that's kind of cool to look up traditional Asian recipes. They do use gamecocks, and it's considered like a delicacy and
Yes.
an honor for these birds after they've lived their life, and then they're put into these very healing soups and things that use ingredients that we're not really used to using, and birds we're not used to having as meat birds.
Right. Is there a different taste that you can tell right off the bat just from the bird itself?
So here, this is kind of part of my story that got me into chickens 10 years ago was I
Okay.
was vegan.
Okay.
I was vegan for many years because I was like a hippie and I just wanted everybody to love everybody. And I just didn't want to be responsible for all these horrible things I saw happen in factory farms and all this. So
That
I
will
said,
turn
well,
you off from eating meat when you look at some of these videos and some of the practices that happen, right? Like in the meat industry, it's kind of degrading.
it is. And I couldn't honestly say, well, I just love animals, but I'm going to turn a blind eye to that part of it.
Hmm.
So my solution to that was to get my own chickens. I was going to have my own eggs, and that's how it started 10 years ago. My own chickens, my own eggs,
Right.
and I'm going to take care of them. And then they're laying the eggs anyway. I'm not going to throw them out.
Right.
So then
Right.
I started
Wait.
eating eggs, and I have been a vegetarian until I started this Shamo project where I felt ethically I couldn't put out these birds that were either had a defect or, somebody can't integrate them as a pet into their
Right.
flock.
Hmm.
So I would be giving somebody a huge chore to just give them an extra male that I have. So
Right.
then I started eating meat because I raise my own birds. I know how they're taken care of, and they have one really bad day,
Hmm.
really bad,
One
and
bad
one bad moment, and then
use
it's over.
that. It's over. I get that. I get that. Was that like a dramatic change for you because you hadn't eaten meat in so long, right? And then you say, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I've heard that when you get a meat that's kind of like farm to table, we know it's responsible. It doesn't have a bunch of junk in it, right?
Right.
That is almost as clean as eating vegetables.
Right. I mean, it's got a lot of micronutrients I think that we take for granted, and I had some chronic um, tissue issues in my neck and my back from an old injury. And as soon as I started eating meat consistently, I stopped having this reoccurring injury. And so I
Mhm.
really do think that our bodies are designed, most people's bodies, at least mine was, to have this, as part of my diet, part of my life, even though it's not necessarily every day I'm taking a chicken out of the yard or anything,
Right.
but it's it's become part of my life now. And I don't know what grocery store chickens really like, so
Hmm.
I have nothing to compare it to. It's just this is chicken to me, is your
That's
backyard.
fine. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, it's probably the highest quality you can get anyway. Plus, it's regal chicken.
Yes, it's a very fancy chicken. Barely fits in a crock pot.
I can tell you 33 inches tall. That's like a mini ostrich. It's crazy.
Yes. Most people who come here who don't know anything about it think that they're a weird breed of turkey. They don't even think they're chickens.
I can see that, like the longer neck, bigger body.
Yes. Yep.
That's cool.
They're interesting. They barely fit into all of the necessary things for processing chickens.
Got you. What's something that you tell people when they're getting one of these birds from you? Some of the tips or off things that they might just need to know.
I think people need to be aware at how, like their drive to be aggressive towards other birds. It's not something that you can just raise them differently or expose them more. And an accident can be deadly. So it's really not something that you can just take a chance.
Yeah,
So once they reach a certain age, they will 100% go after another male chicken and they will make sure that that's their last day.
it's unalived.
That's
I
just,
understand.
it's unalived.
It's
And
like
so,
that breeding for years. It's like my Great Pyrenees. As soon as they see anything that looks like a coyote, it's on site.
right, like these birds have been, they were part of dynasties. So they've been
Mhm.
around for a hot second. Um,
Right.
this is just always how they have been designed to behave. And there's something really incredible about it because, if a hawk flies over, they will run to the middle of the yard and they will crow, like, let's go. They have no
Mm.
fear. So that part is really cool and it makes them the way they are with people. It makes them super interactive. They just don't have that same run and hide thing that other chickens have.
Got you.
So that's pretty big. And then, you're dealing with a big bird. And I think a lot of people want to have something special like for 4-H or
Hmm.
but there's really a lot of accidents that can happen with a kid with a bird this tall, eyeballs and things. You don't get second chances.
Hmm.
So I just hope that people don't get starry eyed and they, understand that there's always a component of danger when you have a combat chicken, know, with your little kid.
Right. I was kind of imagining them to be like mini emus. It's like, this bird had one kick and it could be a whole different day for you.
That's right. I'm sure you've seen Useless Farm on
Yeah, yeah.
Instagram with her. Yeah.
Everybody out you
I
follows
mean,
her
yeah. I mean, you don't want Karen coming at you.
at all, at all. So, and I know that, any given day, chickens are like people. Any given day, we can have a bad day and an accident can happen. But for
Yeah.
the most part, with people, with other animals, does it seem like they're pretty less aggressive, just more towards the birds?
Yes, they're very funny. They love people. We work really hard to socialize them. I have an 11-year-old daughter. She
Hmm.
has one who is particularly fond of her, and
Okay.
that's the one that she shows and works with. But as a rule, she knows that being alone
Hmm.
is
Doesn't
against
know.
the rules at our place. Yeah, just in
I love the
case, because
responsibility. Yeah.
you never know. Yeah, and they're big animals. So, but other than that, yeah, and they'll go head to head with the cat, and the cat will whack them on the head, and they'll peck back, and they're just very funny,
I
quirky.
get it. I love that. I mean, the same. I got an 8-year old, and well, I got teenagers too, but the 8-year old, she helps me a lot with the different animals, and she knows like don't get behind the pony. It's a cute
Yeah,
pony. We love the ponies, but don't walk behind the pony, because that's the danger zone.
right.
So don't go in there with the goats by yourself because as cute and cuddly as they are, if they think you have food, then you may get trampled. So
Yes, to swarm you. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And but at the same time I love how she's able to show them and learn about the breeds and just have that responsibility. I've seen in my kids themselves, they just have become more responsible people now that they're dealing with these animals in this type of way and this type of care. Do you see that as well?
Oh, yeah. And she swung from Saramas
Mm-hmm.
to showing Shamos.
So
Um,
for those who may not know, if you're just listening, she went from Chihuahua sized chickens to Cane Corso sized chickens to Saint Bernard
that's right.
sized chickens. That's basically what happened. That's
Yes,
a
that
big
is exactly what happened. And so, she gained a different level of respect. And then when you go to a show and you see, wow, I'm the only one that has this bird, and people are asking me questions. So it's given her the opportunity to, learn about them, be able to speak up about them, and a little bit about livestock conservancy and all these types of things, why we need to preserve genetics,
yeah.
because they're a valuable bird to have. We don't want to lose them. We could not recreate them out of other
Mhm.
breeds at this point.
So she's
So
like
that's
a
pretty cool.
superstar at the shows. She's got the
Oh yeah.
Beyonce of chickens.
I mean, this kid already is very, I mean, she wants to be a pole vaulting ventriloquist Irish dancer. So
Okay.
she's already just likes unusual things.
At that age, I wanted to be a dinosaur. So I mean,
Yeah.
light years ahead of me.
Yeah. So I mean, she just enjoys I mean, what 11-year-old girl doesn't want a little extra attention?
I mean, I can't name two.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the conservation and you getting into the actual business of it to making sure that these birds have a future.
Okay, well, if we're talking about business as in making money, that doesn't happen with
Oh no,
chickens.
I own chickens. I get it. Sell all
So
the
I
eggs I
wish.
want.
Yes, still working on that. But my husband every once in a while will be like, "So were these going to turn a profit?" And like,
We're not in it for the money. That's what you tell them. That's like the go-to line for things like this. We're not in it for the money.
not in it for the money. This is a heart project, honey.
Yeah.
So I started the Game Fowl Conservation Network because I found it so difficult to find out information on these birds in general, like as a whole. There's American game fowl, Oriental game fowl, there's Bantam game fowl. And I found things to be kind of secretive and cryptic. So
Mm,
I just wanted a place for up and coming generation or people who are interested, who are just absolutely no association with their previous purpose, to be able to find out, what it takes to keep them, that it's not impossible, that people are out there that do it and will answer questions. So it's kind of like a crowdsourcing website. We have a blog, we post resources, and then on Facebook, we're just there to answer people's questions to see if it's the right bird for them.
that's great. That's a very responsible way to spread the word and spread the bird.
Spread the bird. That is the goal. More people have to have them. Somebody
Mm,
said to me not long ago that, if there's not at least 5 breeders dedicated to a breed, they're really only one coop fire or heart attack away from being extinct. So, yeah, getting them into people's hands that are really enthusiastic about them is pretty important.
Are the females, do they, I know you said they do their dance and everything like that too, but do they kind of get into it as much?
They are horrible. They're like the worst high school girl clan you could imagine. Like you are either friends, they either have like their friend, they're like, yeah, we're cool. But if somebody else comes in like, hey, you want to be friends with me too? They're like, absolutely not. We will rip you apart.
That is okay. It's high school. All right.
It
High
is.
school
It is.
chickens.
It makes them very fun. I mean, probably to some people this sounds like way too much shifting, having to keep track, and but it's very entertaining once you get a handle on what they're like.
I can imagine it being something like Real Housewives of the Coop County or something like that.
Oh,
Like,
totally.
I'm not sure.
Might have to change the name of my Instagram account.
Like it.
Real Shamos of Wisconsin.
There you go. We'll be standing by for those episodes. So one question we always ask, and I usually do it in the beginning, but the season 3, we do it whenever we want to. What was your old cluck moment? The moment you realize, okay, I'm a chicken person. There's no going back now.
I am a chicken person. There's no. I heard you ask some other people this, and I thought I can only pick one o'clock moment. I'm like o'clocking all the time.
You can give me a couple. Why not? It's season 3. Give me 3.
The main o'clock moment. Let's see. That's tough, man. I used to keep parrots,
Okay.
and I loved parrots. I took in some foster parrots, macaws, had all these fun birds. And one, they're extremely loud, they're
Mhm.
extremely needy, they're expensive. And then I realized I could have birds of equal or greater size in a volume nobody seemed to really care about.
Mm.
And I could just leave them out there. So I could just have all these cool, colored, magical birds that weren't super needy and didn't cost $2,000 a piece. That is an o'clock moment.
I like it. I like it. Oh, cluck, I'm moving to chickens.
I'm moving to chickens. Chicken math took off. Like I can get all the colors. Nobody's judging me. They lay breakfast. This is great.
It is. Usually people's chicken math kicks in the interim stages when they see
Yeah.
different colored eggs. What was it for you? Was it the colors like you just mentioned?
No, I don't have any colored eggers, but to see all of the fascinating differences in body type and
Mhm.
like with the crests and all these different combs and all these different plumage, I just think it's really amazing when you look at like the phoenix with the extremely long tails and
Right,
silkies, and these don't even look like the same species when you really put them next to each other. It's
right.
amazing.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned very early on that you guys are in a blizzard right now, a storm. It's -10. What are some coop care things that you do to prepare or winter prep and when you're dealing with frigid temps?
It's just awful. It's such an awful time.
Feel it's like buckets of water out of the house every day.
Oh man. Actually, yes. So this is one of the most innovative, simple tools I have is that I have a big watering can that fits under my kitchen sink. And as I get my gear on in the morning, I turn that on. So I take all the birds out warm water in the morning, even though they have a heated, every coop has its own heated thing. They really appreciate having warm water in the morning. It warms them up really fast. Um, and then I use sweeter heaters for, I have one in my main coop.
Mhm.
It doesn't heat the coop. People get really panicky about
Right, you
the
do.
coop heat.
It'll change the temperature too fast. Burn down Facebook. That's what happens.
I mean, it's so bad. This one, you put your hand under it and you have to like count to 10 before you're like, oh yeah, I can feel some heat. So it warms just the bird that stands under it. And it doesn't warm the whole coop or the whole air. If the thing went out, they would be annoyed, but they wouldn't be dead. Um, so they kind of rotate under that and they warm up whenever they want to. It keeps their feet warm. I obviously put a nice good layer of bedding in the winter so they're not just standing on, the cold
Yeah.
hard surface.
Are you doing
But
deep litter? Just piling it on throughout the winter?
I do not do deep litter because at one time I ran into mites. And let me tell
Mm.
you, deep litter in the middle of winter with mites is absolutely a total nightmare I never want to experience again.
Ooh, I can bet.
Because there's just so much of it to take care of. And, it's like, oh, yeah, burn it. I'm like, well, I'll be standing out here for a week trying to smolder this you know, 5 bags of shavings away. So I do clean it out. And I have a poop deck on all of my coops and my breeding pens. So I can keep that area completely cleared, and, rebed it down. I
Okay.
keep instead of doing a perch for my shamos have like a shelf, because they don't have feathers in the
Okay.
front.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
they
Okay.
so they can lay on that shelf and be completely covered, their whole stomach and those long,
Gotcha.
long legs. I can't have really a perch that helps them cover those gigantic legs.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Great stuff. We appreciate that. We always need that. What about diet? Is there any specific things that you add in, or just diet in general?
How long do you want this to be? Because I am so about poultry nutrition.
Let's get into it then. Just at least give us the good points that people could walk away with, because this is for those that are in it, 4, 5, 10 years in it, or for those that are just getting into it. And we can all pick up, like we all steal, right? We all steal each other's information and try to make it work for our own.
Yes. And it's, these are not, of course, backyard chickens that are just laying you some eggs. I'm trying to breed the birds, and I'm
Right.
trying to breed a large, unusual bird that has a little higher nutrition requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually get my feed from Kraut Creek, which is a certified non-GMO feed company in Ohio. So I get like a pallet trucked in, and I have a little co-op group that all gets feed from me, other breeders.
Makes
And
sense.
it has the Fertrell breeder supplement in it. It has higher amino acid levels, which my birds need for feathering out. And it's something that people should be aware of, that different breeds do have different nutritional requirements, especially when you're breeding and trying to produce a little chick that's going to have the greatest genetic potential possible. So
I can imagine.
not just your backyard bird, you want to lay some eggs. It's just a little extra.
Right. Because I mean, in the nature of these are athletic birds that we're talking about. So,
They are.
sometimes they may need supplements just like us. We may need a little extra.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And with the cold, and I mean, you're asking them to kind of go through a life that's not natural for them.
Mhm.
And you're
Right. Right.
asking them to breed and produce earlier than they ever would naturally as well, because our show season is starts in September, and these birds don't really reach an adult size until they're around 8 months old. So showing them younger, you look like you're showing juveniles. So we have to hatch in
Got
January.
it.
Yes, so yeah, I'm hatching during blizzards and expecting them to be at peak performance when they're like trying to hibernate.
Gotcha. So tell me, when you have an award-winning bird, right? Are you say, okay, this one is winning. This is the one that we want to try to hatch with, and try to get other people, I guess, some of the offspring from this bird, but you can't really tell what color is gonna throw out, right?
Oh no, I breed wheat and shamos. So
Okay.
it is pretty specific with Orientals. You're going to match your wheaten females and wheaten males look very different from each other, but they're only going to make that type of offspring. And
Okay.
there's only, a handful of approved colors, but there are a lot of colors out there, but you can only
Yeah.
show and place with the APA with just a few different colors.
Got you. Yeah, I learned that from when I talked to my silky friend. She was like, "It's you can
Yeah.
only show this color. We're trying to get this color approved, but it's not approved yet. But it's really cute."
Yes, it's a whole thing. And with Orientals, again, because of the way they are,
Hmm.
people probably often hear you have to have so many hens to go with one rooster, or else that rooster will overdo it on your hens.
Right.
But it's different with them. They mate single, so it's 1-to-1.
Okay. And
And
is it
they
for
don't
life?
overdo it. If they had it their way, probably,
Gotcha.
but we can intervene, and I'll switch out hens at night. And of course, the boys are like, yeah, all right, that's fine. She's basically the same. And the girls are usually the ones who are like, no, that's not my man. And it takes them a
Real
little
life,
while to,
right? Real life.
yep,
Okay, I understand. It's not my man.
that is not my guy. So the girls are running, and he's like, I don't see the problem here.
You ever have to play like Luther Vandross to get? I'm just kidding. Let me get back into.
I should try that.
Are there any no-nos in nutrition that you state? I'm like, I'm never giving my birds this.
I'm never giving my birds this. I think that it's super important for people to read ingredient lists. And we
Mm,
take for granted that if it's a big company or if it's available at TSC or wherever it may be available, any of the big stores, that it must be a good feed. Why would they have it? But it's important to know that if it says byproducts or meal right up there in those first main ingredients,
right.
you're getting like the dregs.
Yeah, I
And
learned that
that,
from dog food. I was like, you
yeah,
might see corn as the first ingredient when the first ingredient for a dog should be some kind of meat.
meat, right. So if your priority is to go cheap, keep your birds alive, and you're not expecting to have, you know, birds that are vigorous for several
Mhm.
years, then I guess feed cheap feed. But if you're eating the eggs, then you're just giving yourself a lower nutrient dense meal as well.
Makes so
So
much
I think
sense.
that, yeah, that's important to see whole ingredients, to be able to understand what the ingredients are. There are bags of feed out there now that are feeding feathers to
Yeah,
chickens.
I saw that. It's like they are allowed to grind up X amount of feathers as filler, and I'm like, that's crazy because you basically
That's probably a good
they
idea.
lay what they're eating. This is craziness.
It's craziness. And then with other things going around, with the AI going around, like I don't really want my birds eating the feathers of any birds that are
Yeah.
not on my own property. I prefer them not do that either.
Right, right. Let's talk about biosecurity. What are some ways? Because you have some very expensive projects over there. Of course, none of
Yeah.
us want our birds to get sick. But what's some of the ways that you're protecting your flock?
I That's just like a kind of an evolution for me because you have to balance out being um I don't want to live in fear for my
Right,
birds,
right, right.
but I don't want to be stupid. And I'm going to shows. So automatically I'm taking a risk. Anytime I make that choice, I'm taking a risk. So I do quarantine my birds when I get back from shows. I make sure that I sanitize any shoes that were at shows. I don't just go waltz out into my coop. I take my clothes off, put them in a bag, all that type of stuff. But I don't go, I want people to see and experience these birds, or else I'm never going to be able to do what I set out to do and promote them. Um, so yeah, it is a balance. I try and not be stupid, but I don't have any like major, nobody has to put on a hazmat suit to come out and take a look at them.
Right. No, that's
I
some great
already keep
practices.
people
I'm
on the
glad you
outside
said
of
that.
fences. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really really great practices to only wear shoes. If I've been around other birds, I don't wear them around my birds. I have one pair of
Hmm.
chicken boots for my yard, right? Well, now two pair for my yard. If I go to Tractor Supply, I'm not wearing that stuff out. Wherever I'm going that people may have other birds, I'm not wearing it around mine right now. And like you said, you quarantine when they get back and just take a lot of safety precautions. That's great information. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's important people think long and hard before they take on a free bird or find birds on Facebook or any sort of adult bird. That is one of the biggest risks you can open up your flock to, is just taking on another bird. Even if their flock is healthy, they could
Mhm.
be existing with some other type of parasite or something that could affect your flock that is not already there. So just
Yep.
taking time to decide if you really want to bring in outside birds is important.
Great info. I appreciate that, Jessica. That was amazing stuff right there. You're giving us winter tips, you're giving us nutrition tips, biohazard tips, and an incredible story. We hope everybody can learn from this and get into the conservation side of things too with you, at least help spread what you're doing because this is some good stuff.
Yes, and the micro grant program, if anybody is interested in that, it opens up for 2025, and anybody working with a breed on the Livestock Conservancy's threatened, critical, endangered list can apply for it. It doesn't even have to just be chickens. People get micro grants for rabbits, goats, sheep, cows, all the things. And it's very straightforward. It doesn't cost anything to apply. It's a good experience. They have micro grants specifically for kids too. So
Mm.
definitely look into that.
Micro grants. That's one of those USDA grants. I'm actually going to jump into that myself.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep, because we
I
got
mean,
a little animal
it's,
rescue we're doing. So
well, what are you doing?
all of our animals, except for about 8 chickens, are rescues. The rabbits, the
Okay.
goats, the pigs, the ponies. I'm sure there's not something else there I'm missing, but the dogs,
You have a menagerie.
right? Chicken math. But all of them are rescues or rehomes coming from situations where they needed a better situation, right? So outside of them, I'm sorry, one goat who was just a like a purchased pet, right? Everything else is a rescue.
That's awesome. Well, then how do you handle your biosecurity?
Same. I'm changing shoes. I'm changing clothes. I'm quarantining. If we get an animal in, it has to stay. So if we get a new chicken in, right, that needed a rehome, we got a beautiful rooster right now. He had to go in this our little we call it the West Wing. This is a rabbit hutch, and we put him in there, and he's in there for maybe a month up to 6 weeks just to make sure they're not like showing signs of anything. And then after that, it's a slow introduction, just like we would do when hatching chicks or something like that. But it's like that. Yeah. So we quarantine and try to keep everybody separate. We have quarantine pens for any animal coming in as well. And we just try to be as safe as possible without, like you said, living in fear. Because some of our animals go out on our Eggcellent Adventures showcases where we take them to schools and we're introducing kids to farm animals in the safest way possible. But they get excited and now they're interested in agriculture and farming, right? It's just like the gateway.
Yes.
But at the same time, we want to make sure that the health and safety of the animal is good, as well as the kids that we're introducing them to.
Right. My daughter does the same thing. It's called Kaya's Bantam Bonanza. And she
Cool.
takes her little bantams to summer camps and introduces kids to chickens. And boy, I just never knew that non-farm kids would love to touch a chicken so much.
They really do. They like light up
Love
like
it.
that's a chicken, especially when we bring
Yeah.
silkies out. They're like, that's a chicken. It's got fur.
Yeah. I love it. Well, that sounds really awesome too. And if rescue is what people are into, the game fowl come into rescues quite often because they get, they get confiscated from things, and they tend to be very friendly with people. So if people have the ability and want to dip their toes into what it's like to have one, that's the place to look. Humane societies get game fowl, and there's rescues specifically for game fowl, usually outside big cities.
I love that. Is Wisconsin one of the states where they're banned? And if so, how do you get around that if you want to rescue these banned breeds?
Nope, they're not banned, just the activities are.
Got you. Okay. All right. Good to know. Well,
Yep.
Jessica, we appreciate you for joining us. Can you tell everybody where to follow you at on social media?
You can follow me at Keep Cluckin'. Keep Cluckin' on Instagram. I Keep Cluckin' on Facebook. But the Game Fowl Conservation Network is gamefowlconservation.org, or we are on Facebook there as well.
All right. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. This is episode 1 of season 3 of Eggcellent Adventures. We had a very special guest. So you guys follow her. She has some amazing stuff on her page. We can always learn, laugh, and love to see those birds. So thanks again. And good luck with your daughters with her projects too.
Yes, the Bantam Bonanza coming to a city near you.
Cool. You guys stay warm up there. And that is another
Thank you.
episode wrapped up.